Hi, welcome to Second Coming of Unbelief. Today I want to talk about growing up as a Seventh-day Adventist. Um, as the name implies, the seventh day being the Sabbath is extremely important, and it was kept from Friday sundown to Saturday sundown. Um, and because back in the 1800s, you had to chop wood and make a fire to take a bath, heat water over a fire to take a bath. Then Mrs. White said baths must be taken before sundown. And it didn't matter that we had an electric water heater that heated water at our convenience. It didn't matter. Baths had to be taken before sundown. I remember one time Mom told me, sure, there's 60 seconds. You only got 1 minute left. And I got in there and I soaped up, washed the soap off, and I was proud of myself because I didn't break the Sabbath. I took my bath in under 60 seconds. Mom cooked on Thursday and Friday, so she didn't have to cook on Saturday. All she had to do was warm stuff up in the oven. Um, Now, a lot of people, uh, if dad's a worker, he's tired, Saturday he wants to take a nap. Mom, she's kind of tired too, and she probably wants to take a nap. And so a lot of people kind of resented Sabbath because you had to sit there and twiddle your thumbs. And you couldn't watch TV, and you couldn't play basketball, and there's a lot of stuff you couldn't do, and wait for sundown. Um, my parents weren't that way, and I'm thankful for that. They always tried to have something to do. There was a lake about a mile and a half, 2 miles down the train track, and we would go there for a walk, and or we would drive out to a lake about 5 miles out in a different direction. Um, we had board games if it was snowy. We'd go for a drive. Dad knew where there were yellow-headed blackbirds in some farmer's swamp. Dad loved birds. Um, there was always something to do. We'd drive up to the powerhouse, the power generating station, partway up the mountain toward Estes Park. Um, at our house, everybody played music. I was too young, but my brothers were old enough. My oldest brother played the baritone horn. My second brother played the violin, and my third brother played the flute, and they all played very, very well. Um, and so on Friday night, Dad would play the piano. My brothers would drag out their instruments, and we had a circus pump organ from the late 1800s, early 1900s, and Mom would play the pump organ. Make music and play songs for an hour, hour and a half, after supper, before Vespers, or if it was summer, just for a couple hours, and we just play songs. Dad liked to go out to a independent ministry, self-supporting institution, about 25 miles away from where we were. Um, those people are weird. They make a religion out of Mrs. White. I mean, Seventh-day Adventists kind of, it's Mrs. White said trumps the Bible, but out there, it was even more so. Um, we used to have the best music at church. I'm not going to complain about the music at church. We had the best organists, the best pianists, the best instrumentalists, and they played gorgeous. It was high church. It was high church. And later I grew to love low church with the rock and praise and hand waving and stuff. I did not resent the Sabbath. I knew how to plan my week so that it never was a pain in the ass. But it's not that way for a lot of people. there are a lot of things that we were forbidden to do. We were not allowed to drink coffee, tea, Coke, or Pepsi because it had caffeine in it. Mrs. White said coffee and tea is bad. Well, she said that because that was a popular notion going around about in the mid to late 1800s. There was no vision, there was no dream from God. It was just a popular idea going around. No meat, same thing. Adventists don't eat meat. Well, some do, but you can't be translated if you eat meat. Translated, go to heaven without seeing death. What does that get you? A chair closer to the throne of God than me because I died before I came to heaven? I never understood that. No cheese. Cheese should never enter the stomach. And no eggs, because eggs lead to self-abuse. Mrs. White's term for masturbation. There was a doctor in England in the early 1800s that somehow decided that masturbation made boys weak and sick. And the idea made it over here, and Calvinism was big, punish the body, build the spirit. And so being normal was frowned on. If Dad thought I took too long in the shower, were you masturbating in there? It didn't matter if I was or not. And I got one time in 7th grade. I was in 8th grade, and we went downstairs to the 7th grade classroom for English class. The 7th graders went upstairs to the 8th grade classroom for math. And I was bored. English is boring. I like it now, but it was boring then. And just one day I was drawing a hand with the middle finger extended, and I drew maybe 20 hands in the front cover of somebody's book. Well, everybody knows who sits at everybody's desk, so when 7th grade came down, they saw the fingers. And the 7th grade teacher was a lady. And she asked me, Sherman, do you masturbate? I mean, she asked me in the hall, so it wasn't right in front of everybody. But that's an adult woman asking a barely teenage boy if he masturbates. That's a pretty iffy situation. I hated school. This has a connection to being an Adventist. We couldn't listen to pop music because that's the devil. We couldn't go to movies. We didn't have a TV because that's the devil. We only listened to classical music. Dad was really into electronics and hobbies, and we made stuff. So I never felt that I was lacking anything until I went to school, because there was always something to do. I was reading a book or making something. And my friends, my classmates would come to school talking about TV shows, pop songs, and I didn't know what they were talking about. And I was weird. And I started reading them when I was 4. And so I could already read better than 3rd and 4th graders. And that was very uncomfortable. One of the 2nd graders felt very insulted. And he bullied me until we moved out of state my sophomore year in high school. Back to the no things. We couldn't eat between meals. Mrs. White said so. Because it was popular in the late 1800s. Supper is light, so your stomach is empty when you go to sleep. Well, Shervin doesn't sleep on an empty stomach. And I didn't know I sleep very good. Now, in the late 60s, there wasn't, purity culture hadn't begun yet. So there wasn't an emphasis on girls not tempting the boys. That would happen in the mid 80s. Girls, you had to be modest because the Bible says be modest. And mini skirts weren't modest, so the mini skirts had to come down just below your knees, even after you knelt. And the dean of women would stand at the church door with a ruler and check. But it wasn't about girls not tempting the boys. It was just, you need to be modest. And most of the necklines were up here anyway, and occasionally you would see 2 inches of cleavage, and it never was a big deal because purity culture hadn't got to start yet. But in the late 70s, Bob Larson started his work. Rock and roll is devil. It's all sex and drugs, and he'd read the words. He said he used to be a rock musician, and I don't know about that. And he said it's all about sex and drugs, and he would read the lyrics to music, popular songs, Fleetwood Mac, Led Zeppelin, Stairway to Heaven, and tell us what the hidden meaning was. And later, in the late 80s, early 90s, I was at college, and we learned about backmasking. Your brain isn't smart enough to listen backwards when something's been played forwards. The human mind is smart. If the words are going this way, there's a way to decode speech that's going pretty fast. But the human brain is incapable of making sense of something that's played backwards, deliberately played backwards. And that backmasking is just bullcrap. I don't resent my parents. They did the best they could. But I resent not realizing that I was who I was because of where I was born. It wasn't about being right. There is no God. There is no right God. I'm a Christian because I was born in North America. I'm a Seventh-day Adventist because my parents went to Walla College. And my grandfather before that went to Andrews University. If I'd been born in India, I'd be a Hindu. In Christianity, it seemed ridiculous. Anyway, that's it for today's rant. Hit like and subscribe if you want more of my ideas. And thank you for watching.